Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
Being raised in Tennessee, we believe in the importance of family and community. Creating a positive experience at our family-owned and operated business is one of the ways we share that belief.
Being in an accident can be extremely stressful. When it came time for my repairs, Mashburn's made it easy.
I am lucky to have a wonderful company in my community like Mashburn's Collision Center. It's reassuring to know that I'm in good hands because their work is second to none.
We pride ourselves that the Mashburn name is one of the most trusted in Lawrence County since 1981. Mashburn's Collision Center. Let our family take care of yours.
Shop McMaster's Home Gallery for furniture, appliances, and more. And shop quality, shop convenience, shop service, shop local. A family-owned business with a long history of serving the region. We're a one-stop home furnishings destination. We feature brands you know, competitively priced, backed by professional installation and service. You can trust that we'll take good care of you before and after the sale. For your home, shop smart. Shop McMaster's Home Gallery today.
Got primary care? Find your way to better health with primary care by One Stop Medical. With decades of combined experience, you'll find a one-on-one relationship just like the old days, but with the convenience and technology of today. When One Stop Medical does primary care, it's the best. Call today for an appointment and find your way to healthy living. Serving Lawrenceburg, Pulaski, and Hohenwald. Phone 931-244-8220. Primary care by One Stop Medical at its best.
From our humble beginnings to today, Parks Lumber Company has continuously served Lawrence and surrounding counties for over a century. Although we started as a small lumber yard in 1896, we have grown to include everything you need to make your dream project come to life. No matter your building needs, our experienced staff will be with you every step of the way to ensure you receive the highest customer service and attention to detail you deserve. Visit us at 106 2nd Street or on Facebook. We guarantee you will see working with PLC is as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
And welcome everybody into this Friday edition of the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. I'm your host, Michael Marks, and folks, it's 2026. It's our first show of 2026, and we have got a lot to get to. Last show had some technical difficulties, but we'll just try to move on past that. But hey, listen, we've got round 2 of the College Football Playoff, or the quarterfinals, to talk about. We had some great games. We had some not great games. We've got some of the post-Christmas bowl games from last Monday all the way up until today, our last round. But we'll jump straight into some news, as college football always has some headlines, and this one rather recent, within the last hour at least. So the LSU and Ole Miss drama is not quite over yet, as Ross Dellinger has reported that Ole Miss is still unclear whether or not 6 of their assistants who have signed with LSU will continue to coach the Rebels in the College Football Playoff next week. Many around the program expect most, if not all of them, to go ahead and jump ship to LSU. I've kind of got some conflicting opinions about this. One, yeah, you're going to LSU. Why are you still coaching Ole Miss? But there's also the part of me that you started this season as an Ole Miss assistant. You should finish this season as an Ole Miss assistant. I get your head coach, left and jumped ship, and I could go on and on about ethics and what's right and wrong, morals with Lane Kiffin, but that would be pointless. But I do have a problem with assistants and players kind of pretty much playing this season with one foot out the door. I mean, we saw examples of it all over college football, obviously with Lane Kiffin. Now, I don't know if he thought the LSU job or an Alabama job or a Florida job would open up this year. But it seemed that as soon as the water started getting a little muddy in Florida, it started getting a little muddy down in Baton Rouge, he was looking elsewhere. And as were many of his assistants, and players are doing the same thing. I mean, we got guys like Sam Leavitt entering the transfer portal before the season's even over. We've got guys, I believe it was the quarterback at Miami of Ohio, just left in the middle of the last couple of weeks of the season. Ricky Gibson from Tennessee is a great example. Enters the transfer portal following the 2024 season. Tennessee pays him more money. He comes back, gets injured quite literally the first defensive drive of the season, does not play anymore, and then leaves again. So, and I could go on and on about Boo Carter as well. Guys with one foot out the door from the point where the season starts, and I think it sort of taints the the credibility maybe of a team, because you'll look at most of these teams that are still playing, at least in the playoff. Now, obviously, some have entered the portal, but these are teams that are going to bring back most, if graduation, but these are guys that are going to be back next year. These aren't guys that are going to be transferring to other schools. There may be some backups that will, but for the most part, the 4 teams that are still left, and we'll get to those in a little bit, are going to retain a lot of their players, except Ole Miss, but they've got some other things to deal about. Ian Rappaport reported that Tennessee quarterback Joey Aguilar had a successful surgery this morning to remove a benign tumor that had been pushing on his bicep tendon and labrum, causing weakness and pain. Aguilar kept the situation quiet, and full recovery is expected in around 8 weeks. A lot of people had a lot of things to say after Tennessee's bowl game on Tuesday, and we'll talk about that one later in the show. But a little bit. Now most of it goes to one player, and we'll talk about that. But a lot of people felt like Joey Aguilar had looked less than spectacular. We'll say the latter half of the season. Really, Alabama. Moving forward, he had a good game against Florida, but Alabama moving forward wasn't the same guy. Tennessee was not throwing it as deep as much anymore. It was a lot of short routes, a lot of running it up the middle, stuff like that. It was a lot of not putting stress on Aguilar. And people thought, he'd lost his touch, he wasn't as good anymore. This dude quite literally had a tumor pushing up against, and it didn't say whether it was left arm, right arm, but it's a tumor causing pain in your body. You're not going to be at 100%. So props to Aguilar. He didn't miss a single game this season, missed a couple of plays, but for the most part, I don't know how much of the season he battled with this, but usually if it's something benign, it's something that's been there for a while, and hopefully Joey has a full recovery, and maybe if this isn't going to have an impact on his NFL draft stock, that maybe he could try to win that case and come back to school for another year. I think Tennessee fans, some would be okay with it, some wouldn't. But there are a ton of quarterbacks in the portal. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Penn State offense coordinator Andy Kotelnicki is going back to Kansas as the associate head coach, rejoining his old pal Lance Leipold. Kotelnicki had been a member of Lance Leipold's staff from 2013 all the way up until 2023, all the way back to Wisconsin Whitewater, to Buffalo, now to Kansas. Was with Leipold for a couple of years in Kansas, then made the jump up to Penn State, was the offensive coordinator there for James Franklin's squads for a couple of years, and obviously didn't work, as Penn State's offense still had many of the same woes when he got there as they did when they left. But I think it's actually going to be overall a pretty good move for Kotelnicki. I think that his last year in Kansas, they were one of the more fun offenses in the country. Obviously won't have Jalen Daniels, but I think that they'll be able to find a quarterback in the portal. There's enough of them in there. The Tennessee Vols have done I don't know if you want to call it a retooling or rebuilding of their defensive staff, but they went around and got some guys. Obviously, Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator, I think that is a huge upgrade from Tim Banks. You could see it in the bowl game. Tennessee lost, but their defense wasn't the problem. Rodney Garner, going to be your defensive line coach, continue to be your defensive line coach. Listen, every year there has been, at least since Josh Heupel's been in Knoxville, we'll say going into 2023, there's been one position group I have not had to worry about at all, and it's been the defensive line. Given it's been mostly the same guys in that span, and a lot of them are gone, but I feel like during the summer, there's always like a 2-week period where it feels like Tennessee gets 3 4-star defensive ends or outside linebackers, defensive linemen, something like that. Garner's the guy, and listen, until I see otherwise, that was a huge retention for Tennessee, because obviously there were the talks of Alex Golesh trying to bring him in to be the, I don't know if defensive coordinator, defensive line coach at Auburn. So that was a huge retention for Josh Heupel on his staff. They go pick up Andrew Jackson as the offensive line or an outside linebacker and edge coach. These are guys that you're letting Jim Knowles bring in his staff, and that was something that we didn't see at Penn State. He wasn't allowed to bring many staffers with him from Ohio State. I think that this is a good assistant from Penn State. He's been in a lot of different places. He's been a coach at Fordham, Old Dominion, West Virginia, defensive quality control coach elsewhere. So I think this is a pretty good hire. So Tennessee had obviously moved on from Willie Martinez. Some people have thoughts about that. I think getting Michael Butler from Penn State from Ohio State was huge. I mean, look at Ohio State last year, and I get they won the national championship last year, and you can even look at them this year. There weren't teams throwing the ball all over the field on them. Tennessee was letting teams throw the ball all over the field. I mean, Pavia shredded them. Ty Simpson, for the most part, shredded Tennessee's defense. Everybody shredded Tennessee's defense. Blake Shape and Taylon Green, doesn't matter. They all did. Then you go get Anthony Poindexter, safety coach from Penn State. Outstanding recruiter. You keep William Inge as your inside linebackers coach, who I think is one of your more experienced guys on the staff, him and Rodney Garner. Jim Knowles, Andrew Jackson, Michael Butler, Anthony Poindexter. This is a high-caliber defensive coaching staff that can recruit. We'll see if the players can keep it up on the field, because that's always the fun question. You know, you can hire the coaches, you can bring in all the money you want. So, yeah. And, a fun little stat we'll talk about. So Texas Tech obviously did not score in their game against Oregon. We'll talk about that one first, going over the games from yesterday, or this past week. It's not the weekend. Those games are Wednesday and Thursday. So the games from New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. The last time Texas Tech was shut out in the first half was against Oklahoma State, whose defensive coordinator was Jim Knowles. So we will jump right into some of these games because it's fun. It is a fun season. The transfer portal is also open, so we'll do that at the end of the show, go through some people that maybe have committed, maybe have jumped in, where we think some people are going to go, because there are definitely a ton of names entering the portal pretty soon. All right, so we'll start with the Cotton Bowl. Miami taking down number 2 Ohio State 24-14. Whoa. Now, I was in church for the first half of this game, so I missed it. I thought I'd be turning my TV on back at home to Ohio State up, 13-0 at halftime, something like that. A low-scoring, slow game, 14-0 Miami. And you're like, whoa. And it's like, okay, Ohio State will pick things back up. It'll be fine. No need to worry, is there? I mean, this is a team that looked perfect throughout the regular season. There wasn't a problem in the world that you could find with this team. And now this is happening? What is going on? And listen, it felt a lot like the Miami Louisville game. Louisville kind of got out to a lead and just held on to it. That is exactly what Miami did. They got that early lead, they held on to it, and get a big win over the Buckeyes. And listen, Miami has some of the, probably at least in this playoff, have one of the more dominant offensive players and one of the more dominant defensive players. Ruben Bain made Ohio State's afternoon, New Year's Eve, awful. He was all over Julian Sand. I think got sacked 5 or 6 times. I mean, that's one for each of the offensive linemen and the tight end and running back, and share credit for one. 2 interceptions, 3 for 287 yards, but at that point, most of those were just trying to air it out. No run game whatsoever. Didn't even net 100 yards, much less, if you take out Julian Sand's sack yardage, he still had 87 yards total. Bo Jackson, was getting 5 yards a carry. That's all right. But C.J. Donaldson, 4 yards. Couldn't get any consistency. Jeremiah Smith had a great game. His probably... he's got one more year, so I was going to say his last game in college, but he's got one more year to come back, I believe. But 7 catches, 157 yards, and a touchdown. He played fine. It's the rest of that Ohio State team that Didn't. And this wasn't like Carson Beck came out and shredded them, because they didn't. He's a game manager. I think somewhere around, maybe in between that Louisville and that SMU loss, that little 3-week span in there, I think they started to realize that Carson Beck's a game manager. Because you realize that Syracuse game started running the ball a lot. And it was a lot of guys getting carries. I mean, it was a ton of guys. Then you go to the Stanford game. The next game after that, start running the ball a ton. Listen, they got Carson Beck out of the portal and thought they were going to get a guy that could sling it all over the yard, and he's really not that guy. And this isn't anything against Carson Beck. I don't think Miami has a NFL ridden receiver core. Maybe Malachi Toney, but he goes 5 catches for 16 yards, and I believe ran the ball 1 time for 4 yards. So he wasn't a factor in this game. Mark Fletcher was. Mark Fletcher has been a beast in the playoffs, and it's probably not a guy you thought much of. I mean, he was around top 50 in the nation in rushing yards, top 50 in carries, but other than that, wasn't really anything crazy. Had decent games against Florida and USF, Stanford. But his last couple of games heading into the playoffs, 19 yards on 6 carries against Virginia Tech, 3 yards a carry, and then 3 yards a carry on 10 touches against Pitt. You're like, ooh, Miami better find a running back in a hurry. And then he goes 17 carries, 172 yards, no touchdowns, but 170 yards against Texas A&M, and then goes for 90 yards on 5 yards a carry. You can say 115 total yards and a touchdown. He was awesome. Was able to bounce back from that early fumble and kept Miami in it. And listen, probably the most impressive win in a ranked-on-ranked matchup this season. I really do. It's right up there with Alabama, Georgia, but this one obviously had more of has more long-term impacts, and I just think this was a better performance. This is the best Miami's looked all year. I think you could say probably their second best was the playoff game before. I think I remember saying in my playoff preview show, I'm pretty sure I said it this way, that I felt like the winner of the Miami-Texas A&M game had a chance to be this year's Ohio State, that team that you don't see much of, that comes out of nowhere and just runs through the tournament, because they're kind of built that way, both of them. Now, it's not going to be in the same way. They're not throwing into Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Emeka Ibuka, those guys. It's not that. It's just a team that is so dominant defensively. I mean, Ruben Bain is making people's lives awful. He had 3 sacks in the first game, the first playoff game. I believe he had a couple more in this one. Let's see. Only 1 in this one, but, they had guys in the backfield. Akeem Mesidor, not a name you've heard a whole lot this year. He's been a beast. 10.5 sacks on the year. He's been awesome. You got those guys coming from opposite edge. I pray for the tackles that have to block those guys. But, man, great win for Miami. And, I think Mario Cristobal deserves a crap load of credit, because after that Georgia Tech game a couple of years ago where they should have needed it and they ran the ball and they fumbled and Georgia Tech won, he got a lot of crap for that. And then, last year they had a ton of injuries at the end of the year and really fell apart towards the end of the year. Cam Ward was the only guy that stayed healthy for the majority of the season. Everyone else was getting banged up. They looked bad at the end of the year. They get hurt. They lose some games. They're out of the playoff. And then Cristobal has this notoriety as a guy that can't win a game in November. Well, newsflash, it's December now, so the games have turned up a notch, and maybe it's the fact that he hadn't coached a game in December yet. But man, they have found something this year. It's incredible, and it's funny that Miami, the U of all teams left in this playoff, is the Cinderella, but pretty incredible one at that. So we will talk about now the most disappointing game of the first round of the playoff. Oregon, Texas Tech, Orange Bowl, 23-0. Oregon's defense just manhandled Texas Tech. 4 turnovers, 2 picks, 2 fumbles. And I think this game is a great example of why you need to still recruit high school kids. It doesn't matter how much money you can pour into Texas Tech. Joe McGuire is a great coach. You can pour and he's got a great staff around him. It doesn't matter how much money you pour into a portal class every year. They don't guarantee you national championships. Texas Tech poured a crap load of money into this season to come up with nothing. They went 12-2. Oregon is still top 5 every year in high school recruiting, and they're consistently good every year because they coach guys. They bring them up. They aren't getting guys that are coached by somebody else and trying to bring, let's say 6 guys that were coached on 6 different coaching staffs onto yours. So that's now making 7 different coaching staffs, pretty much trying to coach 11 guys. It's hard to get the teamwork out of that. And you could see that out of Texas Tech. There were some moments where they just looked helpless. And they got pushed around on the offensive line. Now, there was a lot of people saying after, Oklahoma's performance in the first round of the playoff that, oh, man, we should have put BYU in over them. And the way that Miami, handled Texas A&M, we should put BYU or Notre Dame in over them. Listen, Texas Tech handled BYU. BYU probably gets beat by 50. Yeah. I thought the Big 12 was really good this year. I think Oregon is really good this year. Starting field position and timely turnovers played an impact on this one. It felt like every time Texas Tech got the ball, they were backed up. And it felt like every time Oregon had the ball, they were in Texas Tech territory. Oregon controlled the clock, too. 38 minutes to 22. I mean, just dominant. Ran 20 more plays. They wore that Texas Tech defense down and allowed Oregon to pile on more late. 3 points in the first quarter, 3 points in the second quarter, 7 points in the third quarter, and then finished it off with 10 in the final quarter of play. Skunked Texas Tech in their final game of the season. And funny enough, you can kind of tell early that Texas Tech wasn't going to be able to win this game. But this Texas Tech team will go down at 12-2. Will be their final record, and all 12 of those wins will be by 20+. Just crazy how college football works. Now to the Rose Bowl. There were fake rumors going around Twitter of this game being moved because of the weather in around Pasadena. If you watched the halftime show during the Cotton Bowl the night before, it was pouring down rain. And then you see the little brooms and stuff. They're literally sweeping water off the field. They didn't allow the bands to do... I don't know if it was just pregame or just halftime what the band arrangements were going to be, but there was nobody on the field other than the teams pretty much during the game. Indiana's band got to come out after the game. But man, it was going to be rough conditions, so you knew you were going to need to be good on the ground. And you could tell from that point that this was not going to be Alabama's game, because Alabama, one thing they could not do is initiate a good ground game all year. Maybe 1 or 2 games where they ran the ball well. I can remember Jam Miller running the ball well against Vanderbilt, but other than that, I don't recall Alabama running the ball well against anybody. And listen, that's what Indiana did not allow, was Alabama to run the ball. We can go pull up some stats, and they're just going to... they're not good. And we'll just look at the running backs for Alabama first. Daniel Hill, 5 carries, 13 yards. Kevin Riley, 3 carries, 2 yards. So running backs in this game got 8 carries for 15 yards. That's less than 2 yards a carry. Not great. So this forced Alabama to be a passing team in a game that was going to be... it wasn't raining during the game, but you could still tell that the ball was wet. And this is an Indiana secondary that didn't allow more than 250 passing yards in a single game this season. And the most they did allow was 243 yards to Aiden Childs of Michigan State. I think that was one of those games where he probably added most of those yards on late. But, they barely let guys get to 200 passing yards. 200. And there were... You look at some of those last games, obviously, with Ty Simpson dealing with that back injury. You look at his last couple of games of the year, really following that Oklahoma game, 147 against Eastern Illinois. Now he only threw 16 passes. 122 against Auburn, and 212 against Georgia. 232 against Oklahoma in a game that he looked really good, and then 67 against Indiana on 16 attempts. This Alabama team that could put on 12 and 15 play drives earlier in the season just wasn't able to. They were beat up. No Jam Miller. You were missing a lot of guys. But Alabama didn't help themselves early. Going for it, 4th down early in the game in your own side of the 50, and then you fumble 2 drives later. That's 14 extra points for Indiana. And Alabama's offense, like I just said, isn't constructed to make comebacks. They are a team that has these long, methodical drives that, quite frankly, don't work when you're down 24-0. Fernando Mendoza, it's funny, everybody talks about the Heisman curse. Guys winning the Heisman Trophy and then falling flat on their face. Now, it's funny because the only Heisman trophies I can think of right now, just off the top of my head, the first one, Cam Newton, he won the national championship. Jameis Winston, he won the national championship. But you look at Marcus Mariota, he lost the national championship. So there is kind of a stigma around the Heisman Trophy that it's a bad thing. Quite frankly, Mendoza was the only one that was at the Heisman Trophy presentation that had a slightly good game in the first round. I'm not going to say he was the reason his team lost, but the two turnovers didn't help. Jeremiah Love, his team opted out of their bowl game, and he never got to play again. His last game was like a 40-yard performance against Stanford where he got hurt. And then Diego Pavia, we'll talk about him in a little bit, had a decent game, but loses his final game in college. But Mendoza, super, super efficient. More touchdown passes than incompletions. You had Becker, Cooper, Surratt, all with one touchdown. Charlie Becker, Omar Cooper, E.J. Surratt, probably the best, one of the best wide receiver cores in the country. I would say the best left out of anybody in the country. They're so good. And when they got a quarterback like Mendoza that can get into them, and the offensive line, I mean, the Rose Bowl offensive MVP was Pat Coogan, who was the offensive lineman, the center for this Indiana team, a transfer from Notre Dame last year. But Hemby, 18 carries, 89 yards and a touchdown. Black, 15 carries, 99 yards and a touchdown. They had two running backs that could do pretty much whatever they wanted in this game. It made Indiana multiple. It made Indiana tough to stop, and they destroyed Alabama. 38-3 final score here. Now, this was an Alabama team at probably 50% health. I mean, Ty Simpson goes down. Austin Mack comes in, tries to spark some life. They got a field goal, but nothing else. I think the big glaring thing here, plays in opponent's territory. Alabama 13. Indiana had 13 in the second half. They had 21 in the first half. So plays in the opponent's territory, 34-13 in favor of Indiana. That's going to win you a lot of football games. And the most lopsided Rose Bowl, I believe, in history, and it was the biggest bowl loss for Alabama. And Indiana, the losingest program in college football history, wins the Rose Bowl, is headed to the Peach Bowl for a chance to play in the national championship game. Great story. Great story. Now, the Sugar Bowl, the nightcap. Reese Davis, said leading into this game, I hope it's a good one because the first two kind of sucked, and they did. He didn't say exactly that, but kind of paraphrasing there. Number 6 Ole Miss defeats number 3 Georgia 39-34. Rarely does one matchup produce, you get two matchups or a matchup of the same game twice in 1 year. We've gotten actually a pretty good bit of those this year, and most of them have sucked. I mean, quite frankly, you look at Tulane Ole Miss again was bad. Alabama Georgia again was not very good. BYU Texas Tech was about as entertaining as it was the first time. Most of these matchups we're getting for the second time this year sucked. This one wasn't, and it was better than the first one, which is really surprising. I would say Georgia and Ole Miss are probably two of the top 10 games of the year. And you know what? I am so happy that Ole Miss got this, just for the singular fact that ESPN did not shut up about the fact that Georgia outscored Ole Miss 17-0 in the fourth quarter of that game that was back in Athens on October 18th. So props to Ole Miss. Georgia handled the first half really well. They forced Ole Miss to kick a ton of field goals. They were scoring touchdowns. That's a recipe for good things. Now, Cañero, the kicker for Ole Miss, was awesome. So, first kick of the game, just a career-long 55-yarder, and it was probably good from 65. Cool. Then next drive, how about another career-long 56-yarder? That one was probably as good from 65 or 70 as well. And then hits the game-winning field goal to send his team to the semifinals. A round of applause, because good kickers are hard to come by in this day and age, and Ole Miss has got them a really good one. Second half was all Rebels. Outscored them 27-13 in the second half, 20-10 in the fourth quarter. Chambliss was awesome. Lacey was awesome. I'll pull up some numbers on those guys because they were moving the ball as well against the Georgia defense as anybody has, especially this late in the season. Chambliss, 30 of 46, and quite frankly, it was probably more like 30 of 42. Those last 5 or 6 pass attempts from Chambliss, trying to move them a little closer for that last field goal. He's just throwing it out of bounds. But goes for 362 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kawan Lacey, 22 carries, 98 yards. So, just under 5 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. Harrison Wallace, 9 catches, 156 yards and a touchdown. DeJon Stribling, he was awesome, 122 yards, made that big catch there at the end, that 40-yarder. Yeah, and you know what? As bad as Ole Miss had handled the end of that first half, props to them to be able to get back in the game, have a really good start to the fourth quarter, and just control it. Big win for Ole Miss, 13-1. I mean, it feels crazy to say them at that record. And they will move on. So, our 4 teams left. We have the Miami Hurricanes, 12-2, the 13-1 Oregon Ducks, the 14-0 Indiana Hoosiers, and the 13-1 Ole Miss Rebels. What is college football? I mean, when you think college football, Miami's a team you think of. Oregon's a newer, but one of the teams you think of, at least in the last 15 years. Historically, these teams are not good, really, other than Miami, who's the Cinderella or the underdog in all of this. Oregon never won a national championship. They've gotten there a couple of times and come up short to Ohio State, to Auburn. Thought they had a shot last year, ran into a buzzsaw. Do they have a shot this year? Indiana, like I said, the losingest program in college football history. I mean, they were talking about Copper Bowl wins as their last bowl win. It was back in the 90s. I think they said Trent Green was the quarterback of in that game. So these aren't typical programs. And I think it was the 91 Copper Bowl, so it would have been Trent Green's, sophomore year, junior year. Teams you don't think of when it comes to college football. And with Ole Miss, I mean, can you think of anything Ole Miss has done now? They have the second most Sugar Bowl wins of all time, with 7. It feels like they're in the Sugar Bowl all the time, and they always win it. But, I mean, other than Archie and Eli, they don't have much of a history either. They had a couple good years with Bo Wallace and probably had a pretty good chance to make a run for it all in 2014, fell up a little short. But I think this makes it awesome because these are teams we're not used to seeing, that aren't used to being here. I mean, if Ole Miss beats Miami, we're getting a new national champion, and that feels awesome. And Miami hasn't won a national championship since, the 90s? Because they didn't win it in 2001. Okay, so it was the 2001 season. I was thinking of 2002. Or the 37-14 victory over Nebraska in the Rose Bowl that year. So 2001. It's been 25 years now since Miami, or 24 years since Miami has won a national championship. And then you got teams like Ole Miss, Oregon, and Indiana that haven't won one ever. And if they have, it's not in it's not recorded. And I don't think Indiana has one. I would believe they haven't won one at all. Their last outright Big Ten championship was in 1945, but they're on their verge of their first ever. So that makes these matchups interesting. So we'll look ahead at these games real quick. Miami versus Ole Miss, obviously, 6:30 on ESPN, January 8th. That is a Thursday night. Why are these games on Thursday and Friday night? Why aren't they Friday and Saturday night, or just both on Saturday? You heard Dan Lanning say it in a press conference before his game. College football should be sacred for Saturdays. Now, I did like the kind of what they did with the first round of the playoffs and with the quarterfinals. Have the one game the night before to kind of give you a little teaser, and then the 3 games all day the next day. But why can't we put 2 games on Saturday? Neither one of these games are on Saturday because I would guess the NFL has a slate of games for that day because they just have noted that the college football season is over in their minds because after the regular season, nothing matters in their eyes, and it sucks that these games are on a Thursday and Friday night because they're not going to get the viewership they would if they were on a Saturday when everybody could be home and able to watch these games. No, it's Thursday night, and kids are back in school now. Now, obviously, college kids aren't, but your elementary and middle and high school kids are going to be back in school at this point. They're going to have games going on, stuff like that. So these games aren't going to get probably the crazy viewership that you would love. So, I just hope these don't go down as forgotten games. I hope they're both really good games so, we can talk about them because, I think college football is better when the quality of the product is good. Now, just a first glance at these games, we got Miami and Ole Miss in the Fiesta Bowl. On Thursday night, we have Oregon and Indiana in the Peach Bowl. On Friday night, we'll talk about those games on Wednesday, next Wednesday. But, man, these are great games. You got Miami and Ole Miss, kind of the underdogs of this whole situation. Indiana, Oregon, we're getting a rematch of a great game from earlier in the season. And you know what? Most of the rematches we've gotten this year have not been good. And I just, I've reiterated that. But even in the playoff, Tulane did not avenge their loss. Now, Alabama did. But then you go to the second round where we had another rematch, Georgia-Ole Miss, and, well, Ole Miss got him back. So far, teams in avenging their losses or avenging a loss that happened earlier in the season are 2-1. That would lean towards Oregon. And I don't know if a team's looked as dominant as Oregon has, really following that Indiana game. They had some hiccups, but who doesn't in college football? You're asking from continuity out of 18 to 22-year-olds. That's asking a lot. Oregon's been physical. Dante Moore hasn't turned the ball over as much. And Indiana is a little beat up. Quite frankly, I think one of these two teams is going to win the national championship at this point. I don't see it Ole Miss or Miami. Obviously, Ole Miss might have half their staff leaving, and I don't think Miami has enough on offense to get it done. They could prove me wrong. Now, I do think this Ole Miss-Miami game is really interesting because one of these teams has to go to the national championship. Is it Mario Cristobal or Pete Golding? Another cool thing is all four of these head coaches, are former Alabama staffers. You got Pete Golding at Ole Miss, Mario Cristobal at Miami, Dan Lanning from Oregon, and Cignetti at Indiana. And I don't believe any of them were had overlap other than maybe Cristobal and Lanning. Obviously, Golding was a little later, and Cignetti was way before. 2010, I believe, was his 1 year in Tuscaloosa. So let's look at some bowl games. Right now, if I had to give you an early prediction on these games, I'm going Ole Miss and I'm going Indiana. I think that provides us a really interesting national championship with a team without a head coach, realistically, playing for a national championship against a team that should not be there, with a coach that should not be there, but they are. Great stories. Let's start with the Birmingham Bowl. You have Georgia Southern taking down App State 29-10 in this one. I mean, Georgia Southern was favored into this one. App State quarterback had AJ Swan had already entered the transfer portal. I'm getting a lot of former Vanderbilt quarterbacks at different schools confused. And App State's going to finish with the most interesting record I've ever seen of 5-8. They were a 5-7 team that made a bowl and lost. We'll probably have another one of those. We have a chance to have another one of those today. What else we got? The Independence Bowl. That's another good one. Coastal Carolina and Louisiana Tech. Listen, Louisiana Tech had the nation's interception leader by 2. He had a pick in that game, and Louisiana Tech wins 23-14. And the Music City Bowl. Illinois 30, Tennessee 28. We can talk about this one for a little bit. Tennessee did not touch the ball on offense. The quarterback did not touch the ball on the field in the last 13 minutes. Because it was sandwiched between Tennessee had that kickoff return with about 7 minutes left, but that was sandwiched between a 7-minute Illinois drive and a 6-minute Illinois drive. And it's tough to win when your offense isn't out on the field. I do think the play calling had some question marks just kind of everywhere. It was, it's hard to not shake your head at some of the calls. I'll kind of get into it. I think Tennessee did not run the ball nearly enough. You got, Deshaun Bishop, 5 yards a carry. Star Thomas getting 7.5 yards a carry, and we're throwing the ball. But now then, Tennessee's offense was not on the field. Joey Aguilar got sacked 4 times. And you had a bunch of drops. Staley had a couple. Kitzelman, I believe, had one. But, completion percentage-wise, this is one of Aguilar's best games. He was closer to somewhere in that 70 to 80% range. Your offense just wasn't on the field. Luke Altmaier had a great game. This was one of Illinois' better games running the ball, which was really surprising to see. But you look at all the guys up front Tennessee had sitting out. There was going to be no Jermon McCoy, obviously, no Ricky Gibson. Colton Hood sat out in that game. So that's your 3 starting corners from the year, and Boo Carter, who was supposed to be in that rotation as well, all gone. You got Jalen McMurray, who was pretty much held together by duct tape out there, giving his all. Had a great game, probably his best game of his Tennessee career. Then you have Chris Brazzell not playing, your number one threat on the outside, a guy that actually played more than a year of football. Because you look at Mike Matthews, you look at Staley, Jackson, those are guys that have been there pretty much playing for 1 year. Matthews got some run last year, but not very much. And then the defense. I don't know why Arion Carter set out. Now, obviously, he'd been dealing with some turf toe issues during the season, but, I didn't see him as a caliber of player that would sit out for an NFL draft. I don't see him being picked in either of the first 2 days. I see him as probably that 4th to 7th round kind of guy. He's I just don't think he's fast enough to be an NFL middle linebacker. Because he has struggles covering the pass game, underneath route, stuff like that. And listen, Illinois ran the ball really well. Lawfrey, Valentine, even Altmaier had some big runs. And Luke Altmaier was great in that game. 250 total yards of offense, 2 touchdowns, only got sacked once. That's how you lose football games. If you're Tennessee, you don't get to the quarterback, you don't force turnovers. And Max Gilbert misses, Drew Gilbert, it's not Drew Gilbert, Max Gilbert, I said it right the first time, misses field goals. And if you look at every game that Tennessee played this year, he's missed field goals. Obviously the Georgia one, obviously the Oklahoma one, obviously that one. I believe he missed one against Vanderbilt as well. I hate to pick on the kid, but, when your one job is to kick and you're struggling with that, it puts definitely gives you a bit of a bad look. I don't know if he missed one against Vandy. That one was just a terrible game. No, okay, he made his field goal against Vandy, a 25-yarder. But I believe I don't know if he missed one at Alabama. Try to block that game from my memory as well. Didn't kick a field goal at Alabama. So, he had his struggles, and his kicking percentage is really good. He just misses the important ones. You miss a field goal, you lose by 2. Unfortunate. I think maybe if Tennessee was up 31-27 there at the end, it would have had a much funner finish for Vols fans. But they'll finish the season 8-5, and is that really where you want your program to be at after 5 years? Now, I've talked about all the overhaul on the defensive staff, but listen, Josh Heupel's going to have to give over play calling duties, and if he doesn't want to, he's going to need to find an offensive coordinator that he trusts, because it's obviously that Halsley is not the guy that he trusts making his play calls. And 2, you're going to have to hire a general manager, because you're going to need somebody to listen. Tennessee has gotten a bad rap the past couple of days of looking at guys entering the portal because they're not paying them enough and stuff like that. You need a general manager to control this stuff, because I think your head coach is going through way too much. Because one, he's trying to call plays, so he's trying to cover play calling duties, cover recruiting, cover NIL, cover the portal, cover staff retention, player retention, new members on this, that, and the other. There's a lot going on. You need a general manager to control NIL, the transfer portal, all that kind of stuff, and let you just coach football. The Alamo Bowl, USC 30-27 in overtime. It's TCU over USC 30-27 in the Alamo Bowl. Don't pick against TCU in the Alamo Bowl. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is, because Josh Hoover was their guy all year. It was a very up and down year for TCU. And then Ken Seals, a former Vandy guy, comes in, is your quarterback, and has a great game. You get a win over a very good USC team, and I think it sets up TCU very nicely for 2026. Now, on New Year's Eve, had some fun games. Had the ReliaQuest Bowl, RIP to the Outback Bowl. I will miss the one team getting the Bloomin' Onion, the other team getting coconut shrimp. I think that was, kind of the Pop-Tart Bowl before the Pop-Tart Bowl, so to speak, because there was a man dressed in a giant Bloomin' Onion walking around on the sidelines of games. That was fun. We're not getting that out of the ReliaQuest Bowl, but we did get a really good game nonetheless. Iowa, the Hawkeyes of all teams, putting up some points on Vandy and getting the win 34-27. I'll pull up some final stats from this one. Listen, Iowa had a great year this year. Put up over 31, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times this year. That's probably 4 more than they usually do. So a great win. They finished 9-4. Got to send Diego Pavia back home. Sad, but man, it was a team effort for Iowa. Mark Gronowski, 16-22, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kamari Moulton, 95 yards and a touchdown. Gronowski, 54 yards on the ground and a touchdown. DJ Vonham. This is your new tight end to know from Iowa. He's a 6'4" freshman out of Breda, Iowa. 7 catches, 146 yards, and a touchdown. And then Reese Vanderzee had the 13-yard touchdown grab as well. But Iowa did their work on the ground and defensively. Vandy had 3 points at halftime. Now, they were able to put up some points there in the third and fourth quarters. Pavia hitting that deep shot to Trey Richardson. Junior Sherrill had a great game. Those guys both over 120 yards receiving. But the run game was not there at all. Pavia, 15 carries, 36 yards, and a touchdown. But Cedric Alexander, 3 carries, 7 yards. McCollin Young, 1 carry, 4 yards. Trey Richardson, 3 carries, 4 yards. No consistency. And you take out that 19-yard carry for Pavia that he had, that is 14 carries for 17 yards. And a touchdown, but still, couldn't get a run game going. That was what Vandy liked to base all their movements and shifts off of. And they weren't able to in this one. But a great win for Iowa in the ReliaQuest Bowl. And just from some of the games we've talked about today, folks, the Big Ten's got the SEC's number. Unfortunately, maybe they are a better conference. Who knows? We'll have to decide that maybe in the national championship. We could have Ole Miss and Indiana. It will be Big Ten versus SEC or ACC. The Sun Bowl. This one was a ton of fun. Arizona State, Duke. It was going to be an Arizona State without Sam Leavitt. So it was going to be Jeff Sims against Duke's defense. I thought that was a match made in heaven. I thought that Duke's defense was going to be able to kind of keep Jeff Sims contained. But, man, that one was a shootout, to say the least. Duke 42, Arizona State 39. One of the better bowl games of the year, the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. I mean, ton of fun. Jeff Sims goes for 375 yards and 3 touchdowns. Darian Mensah throws for 325 yards and 4 touchdowns. Jason Brown, 12 carries, 120 yards, and Jeff Sims, 7 carries, 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nate Shepard had 22 carries, 170 yards and a touchdown for Duke. Man, what a fun game. Brown had a big game. Moss had a big game receiving for Arizona State. Duke had some fumbles, had some issues with that, but for the most part, this was an offensive game, and offense wins. Duke, of all teams this year, finishes 9-5. And that was after finishing the regular season 7-5. They won a bowl game and their conference championship game. What a season for Duke. Just all the props in the world to them. Now the Citrus Bowl. This was a Michigan team that did not have a head coach versus a Texas team whose defense had struggled, and they didn't have a defensive coordinator. And you got pretty much what you thought you would. 41-27 the win for Texas. And I think Arch grew up a lot in this game. It was maybe fear factor wise the second best defense, third best defense he saw this year. I forget that Ohio State game happened, but he saw Ohio State, he saw Oklahoma. I think that this Michigan team was probably right up there with quality of defense. And man, he did everything through the air, on the ground. He outthrew Bryce Underwood, who was supposed to be this all 5-star savior freshman quarterback, and he outran Bryce Underwood, dual threat guy. Arch throws for 222 and 2 touchdowns. Rushes for 155 yards and 2 touchdowns on 9 carries. Christian Clark, and listen, this is after Texas running back room. I'm talking C.J. Baker. I'm talking or C.J. Baxter. I'm talking Wisner. Both gone. They just entered the portal. And so Christian Clark was tasked with taking most of the snaps at running back, a freshman out of Phoenix. 20 carries, 105 yards, and a touchdown is not a bad way to do that. Michigan obviously missing some guys, but they didn't have their running back. No Jordan Marshall either. And this is a team that I think if they had Haynes and Marshall all year would have been really good. Finished 9-4. Got Kyle Whittingham as a head coach, which I think was a great hire. I think that a Michigan program that had kind of POSs as head coaches the past probably 20 years. You can go back even before Harbaugh. Let's go back to let's go to a list of Michigan football head coaches over the past. We'll just go back 25 years. So, obviously you got Sharon Moore, you got Jim Harbaugh, you got Brady Hoke, Rich Rod. Rich Rod was a great guy, but obviously it didn't work out very well there. And then you're back to Lloyd Carr. And Gary Moeller, who had an all right time, and then Bo Schembechler. So you got to go back a while to find a good guy coach at Michigan. I think Kyle Whittingham is a guy that probably going to get for 5 to 8 years. Can he win you a national championship? I don't know, but he is going to poach from Utah and BYU staffs and bring together the best coaching staff that he can. And maybe there will be a good future ahead for Michigan, but I think this is great to find them a good guy as a head coach there, because Kyle Whittingham is one of those guys you'll struggle to find somebody to say bad things about. And the last game of that day, the Las Vegas Bowl, Nebraska, Utah. Kind of saw how this one was going to go. Obviously, Nebraska. You lose Rayola. He gets hurt. He enters the portal. He's gone. Cool. TJ Latif's your guy now. But he's not the guy that can lead you, and you didn't have Emmett Johnson in this game, who was your offense after he left. But I'll tell you who was offense, Devin Dampier. Totals 460 yards, 458. We'll go 400. We'll round up. 460 yards of offense and 5 touchdowns. Was great. 19 completions, 19 rushes. Kept it very all over the place. Wayshawn Parker had a good game on the ground. Down Bentley, J.J. Buchanan. And really the only guy you can say great things for Nebraska was Mekhi Nelson, 12 carries, 88 yards, and a touchdown for him. And then Caleb Benning had 13 tackles, but that's just because Utah was running it down their throats most of the game. Utah outgained about over 200 yards, 130 in the air, about 100 on the ground. Just a all-around dominant game for Nebraska. Now the remaining bowl games, I believe one of them's actually going on as we speak. Yes, it is. Still in the first quarter there of the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Rice and Texas State tied up at 0 right now. It is 4th down. Will be Rice punting to Texas State, who will have the ball at their 31 when will have the ball at their own 31 when they return from break there on ESPN. This looks like a game that Texas State will win. I think they're much better coached and have a lot more talent left over. But hey, we could have another 5-8 team if Rice does end up falling in that one. I'm going Texas State though. I think that G.J. Kinney will be a guy that will be one of those names tossed around to be a head coach pretty soon. The AutoZone Liberty Bowl, Navy and Cincinnati, 2 teams that had really good starts to the season that kind of fell apart there at the end. I'm going to go with Navy. Brendan Sorsby's entered the portal. Tawee Walker, Evan Pryor, they're all gone. Probably going to be a tough look next year for Scott Satterfield's staff, but if he can do what he did this year, again, bring in guys, make them perform much better than a lot of people think, he could, probably save his job. Navy, on the other hand, they had a great year. And you look at Blake Horvath and all that he's done this year, 2,500 total yards, 25 touchdowns. It's been great. Navy seems like a team that's hard to beat in bowl games. Cincinnati's going to be without a lot of their offense. I'm going Navy in this one. And then the last game of the night, the last bowl game, I believe, the Holiday Bowl. We got Arizona. We got SMU. It's going to be fun. I like what the AP wrote about this, calling it, saying that this game tonight could easily be called the Loyalty Bowl, because you have SMU, Kevin Jennings, he's playing, everybody's staying, Rhett Lashley, he's there, he's still there, Arizona, Noah Fafita, he's playing, they're staying at their schools, where they started. Obviously there's guys that transfer after 1 year. Kevin Jennings and Noah Fafita played their first down of college football. Their first day of practice as a freshman was at Arizona and SMU respectively, and their last games will be at Arizona and SMU respectively. I respect that, because these are 2 really good quarterbacks that maybe could have gone elsewhere. And also props to these athletic directors, keeping Brett Brennan. He's done a really good job at Arizona, and keeping Rhett Lashley. I know Arkansas wanted him really bad. I think Arizona's got a little bit more defensively than SMU does. And I think that they can force some turnovers. And when Kevin Jennings is turning it over, he has shown he's shown the ability to turn the ball over a lot. 26 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. To Noah Fafita's 26 touchdowns to 5 interceptions on about 40 less pass attempts, but still. It should be a great game, though. That one on Fox at 7 p.m. tonight. How could I forget the Duke's Mayo Bowl? We got a bowl game with a chance to get mayonnaise dumped all over you. This one between Mississippi State and Wake Forest. Wake Forest is losing a lot. Mississippi State is a fun team. They've got their future figured out. They've got Zach Arnett coaching the defense. Jeff Lebby's going to have that offense right. They've got Taylor as their quarterback. Are they going to have Bothwell? Are they going to have Booth for this bowl game? That is to be determined. But I would say that, listen, Kamario Taylor is going to be fun to watch. He will probably lead the team in passing and rushing. If he can put up over 300 yards in the air, give me Mississippi State in that one. So that will do it for bowl season. Man, it's crazy that Monday we'll talk about the Vegas Bowl, we'll talk about the Armed Forces Bowl, we'll talk about the Liberty Bowl, we'll talk about the Holiday Bowl, and the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Man, it's crazy the bowl season's already coming to an end. And now let's take a look at everybody's favorite mythical thing, the transfer portal. I'll check on 3 first, see if any major guys have made some commitments. Okie dokie. Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech are the 2 schools to watch for Bo Perbula. Obviously, I think Georgia Tech is a match made in heaven for him if he can bulk up a little bit. I don't know if he's a small guy, but Georgia Tech's offense does allow you to get, have some more punishment put on your body because you're running the ball 20 times a game. Texas is working on bringing Auburn wide receiver transfer Cam Coleman on a visit. He's the number 1 player in the transfer portal. Everybody wants him. This is a freak athlete that is going to be the best receiver, second best receiver in the country next year. I think it's going to be him and Jeremiah Smith neck and neck for whoever has a better quarterback. Sagan's going to be back for Ohio State, I believe, because Lincoln Keenholz is at the portal. For whoever Cam Coleman's quarterback is, it's going to be much better than Jackson Arnold. Cutter Boley. Whoa, actually, I had this one backwards. So Arizona State, this is from 50 minutes ago. Arizona State quarterback Sam Leavitt has entered the transfer portal. That was an hour ago with a do not contact tag, which means he knows where he wants to go. And everybody thought Oregon. Well, where did Oregon's offensive coordinator just go? Sam Leavitt's predicted to go to Kentucky right now. I mean, that would be that'd be crazy. Cutter Boley's entered the portal, and it's looking like, funny enough, Arizona State's the spot for him. With Brendan Sorsby entering the transfer portal, it looked like LSU and Texas Tech are the 2 teams fighting for him right now. Because with Ole Miss beating Georgia, because I don't think anybody realistically thought that was going to happen. Thought Georgia was going to handle them again because Georgia doesn't, if they beat you once, they'll beat you twice. They're that kind of team. So we thought we'd be saying Trinidad Chambliss is entering the portal today, and these guys are moving on to LSU. Well, that hasn't happened. So LSU, in just trying to find a guy, is probably going to have to settle. I'm not going to say settle, but they're probably going to have to go with Brendan Sorsby. I think we're going to see guys like Raiola end up at Louisville. I think you're going to see Lagway's probably going to Baylor. Early Miami was in talks for him and LSU, but it's realistically he's not going to end up at one of those spots. Man, there's a ton of quarterbacks that could end up in a ton of fun, bunch of fun places. Let's take a look at some of the higher ranked quarterbacks in the portal. Sam Leavitt, number 1 guy, allegedly Kentucky. Brendan Sorsby looks like he's going to be, I would say, Texas Tech. His girlfriend goes there. They have a lot of money. He's going to be worth a lot of money. He was just in that conference. And now, why wouldn't he want to be the quarterback for the best team in that conference? Drew Mestemaker, I think he's going to Oklahoma State. Caleb Hawkins, I think he's going to Oklahoma State. Those are 2 guys from North Texas. I think Wyatt Young, the receiver, he's going to go to Oklahoma State. Eric Morris, I will say it again, because now that these guys are all but officially there, watch out if he gets a defensive coordinator. Like I said, Lagway, Baylor, Raiola, Louisville. Now, if Chambliss does enter the portal and go to LSU, what does that leave for Ole Miss? Because I don't think they want to go with Austin Simmons. Is Deuce Knight a name that they could go for? I mean, he's from Auburn, right down the road. Do you look at... I don't even know. You could go with Austin Simmons. You could try to, get a guy like a Rocco Becht or a Josh Hoover. I think those are probably Big Ten guys. Byron Brown, he's already in the portal with a no contact tag. He's going to be at Auburn. I think Beck's going to follow Rocco Becht. I think he's going to follow his head coach to Penn State. Now, Josh Hoover from TCU. I've heard Tennessee is a name involved with him. I've heard Indiana is a name involved with him. I've heard Oregon is a name involved with him. He's going to be one of those top guys that's going to end up at a top school. And it's scary if it's going to be Oregon. I would say probably right now Indiana. But who knows? Kenny Minchie, I think he's going to end up at Nebraska. That seems like the spot that he has been connected to the most. Aiden Childs has entered the portal. He's probably going to transfer down a level like this seems like a Mountain West school getting a guy. I know Calandria has talked about entering the portal from UNLV, so maybe he could end up there. Boise State, Nevada, somewhere like that. That he can try to revive his career, because obviously that time at Michigan State and Oregon State, well, the Oregon State time went well, but the Michigan State time did not. Bo Pribula, like I said, I think he's probably going to go to Georgia Tech, bulk up, be a big guy for them. And speaking of a Georgia Tech transfer, Aaron Philo, I think he's going to Florida. I've heard a lot of talk of him going to Florida, and I think that is a great quarterback mix for Summerall. I mean, Philo seems a lot like maybe just a slightly better passer than Jake Retzloff. But, if Retzloff hits the portal and goes to Florida, who knows? Lincoln Kineholt's name I just brought up. His name is projected to UNLV right now. I could see him doing the same thing as what I just mentioned with Childs, is going to a group of 5 school in Mountain West, because I don't think you want to go to the American. I think that conference is going to be down next year just because of the amount of head coaches they lost. Maybe Conference USA, maybe go to a JMU, because obviously Alonzo is at the portal. Caton Hauser is a name that I've seen for Arkansas. I don't know if that one is how much traction that one has. Obviously, being the guy at East Carolina. But yeah, it's going to be a really interesting transfer portal next couple of weeks. All-American Caleb Downs has high praise for Tennessee's new defensive backs coach. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see. I wonder what we're going to see in the portal. I really don't know. I mean, obviously, your guess is as good as mine, because one guy goes somewhere else that somebody else was supposed to go to. Then you have butterfly effect, domino effect, whatever you want to call it. A bunch of crazy stuff going on in the world of college football, as always. So when we return on Monday, we are going to do a college basketball overhaul, because we got conference play starting up. That started up in the last week. The SEC, I know, starts Saturday. So we will talk about all that on Monday. We'll have a new AP Top 25. We'll probably have some transfer portal to talk, because guys will be committing. So yeah, it's going to be a fun and busy next couple of weeks. So that will do it for the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. Have a good weekend, everybody, and stay safe. And we'll see you next week.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.